Did you know there is a day in the year when the heavens open wide and the Queen enters surrounded by angels, while millions of souls celebrate her victory? That day is not a symbol, not a legend. It is a reality that transforms lives. It is the day when the Virgin Mary was taken up to heaven, body and soul, the solemnity of the Assumption, August 15th. Imagine for a moment, all the bells in heaven ring at the same time, all the angels sing, and Mary, the same woman who cradled Jesus, who stood at the foot of the cross, who prayed with the apostles, is crowned as Queen of the entire universe. And all of this does not happen somewhere far away, but in a reality that also touches your life. The Church teaches us that on this feast, we celebrate Mary's definitive triumph over sin and death. She, the mother of Jesus, was elevated to heaven and crowned as Queen. But this day isn't just for remembering her. It's an open door for you to receive special blessings. Padre Pio used to say, on the great feasts of the Virgin, graces rain down like spring showers for those who await them with faith. Picture this. While the world goes about its daily routine, something extraordinary is happening in the spiritual realm. Angels are singing, saints are rejoicing, and Mary herself, the woman clothed with the sun, is interceding with special power for her children on earth. This is your moment, your opportunity to tap into something magnificent. Today, I want to reveal 3 specific things you must do on the Assumption of Mary to receive a powerful grace. These aren't complicated rituals or difficult tasks. They're simple gestures, but each one is a key that opens the mother's compassion and moves her to intercede before her Son for you. Think about what you need most right now. Maybe it's healing for someone you love. Perhaps it's financial breakthrough, peace in your family, or clarity about an important decision. Maybe you're carrying a burden that feels too heavy, or you're facing a situation that seems impossible. Today, August 15th of the Assumption of Mary, could be the day everything changes. If you believe Mary can transform your deepest struggles into victory, write in the comments, Holy Mary, my Queen, lift my prayers to Jesus. Your simple act of faith creates a connection that reaches beyond this screen, beyond this moment, straight to the throne of our Heavenly Mother. Are you ready to discover these 3 life-changing actions? Let's begin with the first one, and I promise you, by the end of this message, you'll understand why August 15th is one of the most powerful days of the entire year. The first thing you must do on the Assumption of Mary is renew your consecration to the Virgin. If you've never done this before, this is the perfect moment. If you have, today is the day to do it with renewed spirit and deeper understanding. What does it mean to consecrate yourself to Mary? It means placing your entire life under her maternal protection. It's like a spiritual adoption where you become truly her child and she becomes truly your mother. Take your rosary in your hands. If you don't have one, simply hold your hands over your chest. Find an image of Mary. It could be a statue, a picture, or even just close your eyes and picture her gentle face. Now speak to her not as a distant saint, but as the most loving mother you could ever imagine. Say with your soul, Mary, I belong to you. Guide me always. Take my life and make it pleasing to your Son. When I am weak, be my strength. When I am afraid, be my courage. When I am lost, be my light. I trust you completely, dear Mother, and I place myself under your protection. Padre Pio understood this truth deeply. He said, when you place yourself under Mary's mantle, the devil cannot touch you. This isn't just beautiful poetry, it's spiritual reality. Mary's protection is real, tangible, and immediate for those who truly consecrate themselves to her. Let me tell you why this consecration is so powerful, especially on the Assumption. When Mary was taken up to heaven, she didn't abandon her children on earth. Instead, her motherhood became universal and eternal. From her throne in heaven, she watches over every soul who calls upon her name. But there's something special about those who have formally given themselves to her through consecration. Think of it this way. Imagine you had two groups of people asking for your help. One group consists of strangers making requests. The other group consists of your own children, your own family members, asking for the same things. Which group would receive your immediate and most generous response? Your own children, of course. This is exactly what happens when you consecrate yourself to Mary. The beauty of consecration is that it doesn't require perfection from you. Mary knows you're human. She knows you'll make mistakes, have doubts, and face struggles. But when you belong to her, she works with your imperfections. She covers your weaknesses with her strength. She presents your prayers to Jesus with her own perfect advocacy. Many people think consecration is a one-time event, but Padre Pio taught differently. He would renew his consecration regularly, especially on Mary's great feast days. Why? Because our human souls need constant renewal. We forget, we get distracted, we start trying to handle everything on our own again. On this August 15th, as Mary is celebrated in her heavenly glory, she's looking down with special tenderness on those who choose to consecrate themselves to her. It's as if she's saying, "Come, my child. Let me be your mother not just in name, but in every detail of your life. I want you to understand something profound. When you consecrate yourself to Mary, you're not adding another burden to your life. You're actually removing the heaviest burden of all, the burden of trying to navigate this difficult world alone. Mary becomes your spiritual guide, always directing you toward what's best, always protecting you from what could harm your soul. If you're facing a difficult situation right now, here's what I want you to do after you make this consecration. Tell Mary about it as specifically as you would tell your earthly mother. Don't use formal, religious language. Just talk to her. Say, "Mother, I'm scared about this situation. I don't know what to do. Please help me." Then listen with your spirit. Pay attention to the peace that comes, the ideas that surface, the opportunities that appear. This consecration to Mary on the Assumption isn't just about receiving blessings, though blessings will come. It's about entering into a relationship that will sustain you through every season of your life. When earthly mothers fail us, Mary never will. When human help runs out, Mary's advocacy continues. As we prepare to discover the second powerful action for the Assumption, remember that this consecration you've just made isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's the foundation upon which all other graces will build. You are now truly Mary's child, and she is truly your mother in the most beautiful and powerful sense. The second thing you must do on the Assumption of Mary is attend Holy Mass and offer it for a special intention. In the Eucharist, Jesus himself gives himself to us, and there is no greater gift than uniting your prayer with his. Let me explain why attending Mass on the Assumption carries extraordinary power. When we celebrate the Eucharist, we don't just remember what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. We participate in that same sacrifice that transcends time. And on August 15th, when the Church celebrates Mary's triumph over death, your participation in Mass becomes a bridge between earth and heaven. Padre Pio had an incredible understanding of the Mass. He said, "If people understood the value of one Mass, there would be endless lines to get in." This wasn't exaggeration. It was the insight of a man who spent hours celebrating Mass because he understood he was touching eternity. When you attend Mass on the Assumption, you're not just fulfilling an obligation. You're positioning yourself at the exact intersection where heaven meets earth. Think about it. Mary, who is being celebrated in her heavenly glory, is the same woman who said yes to God's plan at the Annunciation. Her yes brought Jesus into the world, and your yes brings Jesus into your specific situation. Here's what I want you to do. Before Mass begins, Hold your specific need in your mind. Maybe it's healing for a loved one. Maybe it's provision for your family. Maybe it's restoration of a broken relationship. Maybe it's guidance for a major decision. Don't bring a vague prayer. Bring something specific, something that matters deeply to you. When the priest elevates the host during the consecration, this is your moment of power. Look at that host. It's no longer bread, it's Jesus himself. In that sacred moment, imagine yourself placing your intention directly into the hands of Jesus. But here's the beautiful part. Picture Mary standing right there beside the altar, taking your intention from Jesus and holding it close to her immaculate soul. The connection between the Eucharist and Mary isn't accidental. Mary gave Jesus his human body, the same body that becomes present in every Mass. When you offer Mass for your intention on the Assumption, you're asking the Mother to present your need to the Son in the most perfect way possible, through the sacrifice that saved the world. I remember reading about a woman named Sarah who attended Mass on the Assumption 3 years ago. She'd been unemployed for 8 months, facing the possibility of losing her home. Instead of staying home feeling sorry for herself, she dragged herself to Mass that August 15th. During the consecration, she placed her financial crisis into Jesus' hands and asked Mary to advocate for her. The very next day, she received a call for a job interview for a position she hadn't even applied for. Someone had recommended her. Within 2 weeks, she had not only gotten the job, but discovered it paid more than her previous position. Sarah told me, "I know it was Mary. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. But here's what many people miss. Offering Mass for an intention isn't just about making requests. It's about aligning your will with God's will. Sometimes the grace you receive isn't the specific thing you asked for, but something even better, the strength to handle your situation with peace, the wisdom to see new possibilities, or the healing of relationships you didn't even realize needed healing. When you participate in Mass on the Assumption, you're joining your voice to the entire Church throughout history. Every saint who ever lived, every angel in heaven, and Mary herself in her glorified state, all are present at every Mass. Your personal intention becomes part of this cosmic prayer, lifted up by voices more powerful than you can imagine. The beautiful truth is that Jesus never refuses his mother's requests. At the wedding in Cana, when Mary asked Jesus to help with the wine shortage, he performed his first public miracle. She simply said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." That same dynamic happens when you offer Mass through Mary's mediation. She tells Jesus about your need, and she tells you to trust in his response. After Mass, don't rush away immediately. Take a few moments to thank Mary for her advocacy. Thank Jesus for the gift of the Eucharist, and then pay attention in the days that follow. Grace often comes quietly, in ways we don't expect. Sometimes it's a sudden peace about a situation that was causing anxiety. Sometimes it's an unexpected solution that appears. Sometimes it's simply the strength to endure what cannot be changed. This August 15th, make your attendance at Mass an act of faith, not just routine. Come with expectation, come with your spirit open, and come ready to let Mary take your deepest concerns directly to the throne of her Son. Speaking of the power of prayer and Mary's advocacy, I want to share something special with you. Many people have asked me how they can deepen their prayer life and strengthen their connection with Padre Pio's teachings. That's why we've created something truly meaningful for those who want to experience the transformative power of devotion. Our ebook, The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection and Divine Graces, will help you discover how to pray the Rosary with greater devotion and depth, learn about the miracles and testimonies of those who have experienced its power, understand Padre Pio's most impactful teachings about prayer, and receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith, plus access to special prayers for protection, healing and liberation. The Rosary was Padre Pio's greatest weapon, and today it can be yours too. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your spiritual life with material that has already helped thousands of people. To download it, just click the link pinned in the comments. Now, let's discover the third powerful action for the Assumption. The third thing you must do on the Assumption of Mary is perform a concrete act of love in honor of Mary. This isn't just about praying or attending Mass. This is about letting Mary's compassion beat through your actions. Mary lived her entire life in service to others. From the moment she said yes to the angel Gabriel, she was thinking of humanity's salvation, not her own comfort. When she visited her cousin Elizabeth, she went to serve, not to be served. At the wedding in Cana, she noticed the host's embarrassment and moved to help. Even at the foot of the cross, in her deepest pain, she accepted the responsibility of being mother to all of us. On the Assumption, Mary wants to see her own compassion reflected in her children. This means stepping outside yourself and doing something beautiful for someone else, specifically in her honor. It doesn't have to be grand or expensive. Sometimes the smallest acts of love create the biggest miracles. Visit someone who is sick or lonely. Make that phone call to reconcile with someone you've been avoiding. Help a neighbor with groceries. Forgive someone who hurt you. Send an encouraging message to someone going through a difficult time. Donate to a food bank. Even pray for someone you consider an enemy. Yes, that person who frustrates you or has wronged you. Padre Pio understood this perfectly. He said, "Charity is the key that opens all the doors of heaven, but charity isn't just giving money, though that can be part of it. Charity is love in action. It's choosing to see others the way Mary sees them, as beloved children of God who need compassion, understanding, and help." Here's why this act of love on the Assumption is so powerful. When you love someone in Mary's name, you become her hands, her voice, her compassion in the world. She can't physically embrace the lonely anymore, but you can. She can't physically feed the hungry, but you can. When you act with love in her honor, she multiplies the impact of your gesture in ways you may never fully understand. Let me share something beautiful that happened last year. A man named David had been struggling with his teenage son for months. Their relationship had become nothing but arguments and silence. The boy was angry, rebellious, and seemed to hate everything his father stood for. David felt like a complete failure as a father. On August 15th, David remembered that it was the Assumption, and he decided to do something loving in Mary's honor. Instead of lecturing his son or trying to fix their problems with words, he simply went to his son's room and said, "I'm going to clean your car today, no strings attached. I just want to do something nice for you." His son was suspicious at first, waiting for the catch, the lecture, the conditions. But David just spent 2 hours washing, waxing, and detailing that car, praying for his son the entire time. When he finished, he left the keys on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "I love you more than you know, Dad." 3 days later, his son came to him and said, "Dad, I've been thinking about what you did with my car. It made me realize how patient you've been with me, even when I've been impossible. Can we talk?" That conversation became the turning point in their relationship. David told me, "I know it was Mary. She took my simple act of service and turned it into healing for our whole family." This is how Mary works. She takes our small gestures of love and transforms them into something far beyond what we could accomplish on our own. But here's the key. The act of love must be genuine, not manipulative. You can't do something nice just to get something in return. You have to do it because you truly want to honor Mary by loving as she loved. Some of you might be thinking, "But I don't have time," or "I don't know what to do," or "I'm going through my own struggles right now." Here's the beautiful truth. Often the best acts of love come from people who are struggling themselves. When you give from your own emptiness, when you serve despite your own pain, Mary's compassion is especially moved. Maybe you're dealing with financial stress, but you can still call someone who's lonely. Maybe you're battling illness, but you can still pray for someone else's healing. Maybe you're heartbroken, but you can still offer words of comfort to another broken soul. Mary understands that love sometimes costs us something, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. The act of love you choose doesn't have to be connected to your own needs or problems. In fact, sometimes it's more powerful when it's not. When you serve others purely for Mary's honor, without any agenda for yourself, you create space for her to work in unexpected ways in your life. As you plan your act of love for this Assumption, ask Mary to guide you. Pay attention to who comes to mind, what situation you become aware of, what opportunity presents itself. Sometimes the person you're meant to help will be obvious. Sometimes Mary will surprise you by putting someone unexpected in your path. Remember, you're not just doing a good deed. You're participating in Mary's own mission of bringing God's love to the world. You're allowing her to love through you, and there's no greater privilege than that. As we come to the end of our time together, let me remind you of the 3 powerful actions that can transform your August 15th into a day of extraordinary grace. Renew your consecration to Mary, attend Holy Mass with a specific intention, and perform a concrete act of love in her honor. These aren't just suggestions, they're invitations from the Queen of Heaven herself. Today, as we celebrate Mary's Assumption, she's extending her hand to you, offering to take your burdens and carry them to her Son. She's promising that no prayer made in faith on this day will go unheard. No act of love will go unrewarded. Think about this moment in salvation history. When Mary was taken up to heaven, body and soul, it was God's way of showing us our own destiny. Death is not the end. Suffering is not permanent. What seems impossible becomes possible when we trust in God's plan. Mary's Assumption is your preview of eternal life, your guarantee that this world's struggles don't have the final word. August 15th comes only once each year. We don't know if we'll have the grace to experience another Assumption feast day on earth. This could be your moment, your breakthrough, your miracle. Don't let it pass by like just another ordinary day. Padre Pio used to say that Mary is never outdone in generosity. Whatever you give to her in love and faith, she returns multiplied. The time you spend in consecration, she repays with protection. The devotion you show at Mass, she repays with advocacy. The love you show to others in her honor, she repays with blessings you never expected. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and picture Mary in her heavenly glory. See her wearing the crown of 12 stars, clothed with the sun, standing on the moon. But notice her expression. It's not distant or cold. It's the face of a mother looking at her beloved child. That's how she sees you, Virgin Mary, Queen assumed into heaven. Today I place myself completely under your protection. Receive my intentions, watch over my family, advocate for all my needs. Cover us with your mantle and lead us one day to heaven to be with you and your Son for all eternity. Through your immaculate soul, may every prayer be heard, every tear be comforted, every hope be fulfilled. Amen. If Mary's love has moved your spirit today, if you trust in her powerful advocacy, write in the comments, Mary, my Queen, I trust in your love. Your declaration of faith joins with thousands of others who are claiming this day's special graces. And please, share this message with someone who needs hope today. When you spread devotion to Mary, you become part of her mission to bring souls closer to Jesus. Like, subscribe, and become part of our community of faith, because together we're stronger, and together we can help each other grow closer to heaven. Have you ever wondered what happens in those crucial moments after we take our last breath? This question has puzzled humanity for centuries, and today we're going to explore the profound insights of Padre Pio on this mysterious journey. Padre Pio, a revered saint known for his wisdom and spiritual gifts, shared remarkable revelations about the transition from this life to the next. His teachings offer us a glimpse into a reality that's often shrouded in fear and uncertainty. Death is a subject that many of us avoid, yet it's the one certainty we all face. Understanding what happens in that first hour after death can bring us peace, prepare us for our own journey, and even transform how we live our lives today. Padre Pio tells us that death is not the end, but a new beginning. It's a threshold we cross from the physical world into the spiritual realm. This transition, he says, is as natural as a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. But what exactly happens in those first 60 minutes? How does our soul separate from our body? Who greets us on the other side? And what determines our eternal destination? These are the questions we'll explore today, guided by the profound wisdom of Padre Pio. His insights offer us not just knowledge, but a roadmap for living a life that prepares us for this ultimate journey. So if you're ready to uncover these spiritual mysteries, to find comfort in understanding, and to discover how this knowledge can transform your life today, stay with us. We're about to embark on an extraordinary exploration of what awaits us all in the first hour after death. Remember, if these revelations touch your heart, take a moment to write, "I believe," in the comments. Your faith and engagement help spread these important messages to others who may need them. Now, let's begin our journey into the unknown, guided by the light of Padre Pio's wisdom. In the first moments after death, Padre Pio teaches us that a profound process begins, the separation of the soul from the body. This separation, he explains, is not a violent tearing, but a gentle release, like a ripe fruit falling from a tree. As the last breath leaves the body, the soul begins to disengage from its physical vessel. Padre Pio describes this as a moment of clarity and awakening. The soul, no longer bound by physical limitations, experiences a newfound lightness and freedom. But this journey is not taken alone. Padre Pio reveals that angels are present in this crucial moment. These celestial beings, he says, act as guides and protectors for the newly freed soul. They provide comfort and direction, helping the soul navigate this new spiritual reality. The presence of these angels, according to Padre Pio, serves another vital purpose. They stand guard against any negative forces that might try to interfere with the soul's journey. This spiritual protection ensures that the soul can safely begin its transition to the afterlife. Padre Pio often compared this process to the metamorphosis of a butterfly. Just as a caterpillar must shed its cocoon to emerge in its true, beautiful form, our souls must leave behind the physical body to reveal our spiritual essence. This transformation, while natural, can be disorienting for the soul. The state of the soul at this moment, Padre Pio teaches, greatly depends on the life it has led. For those who have lived a life of prayer, mercy, and sincere repentance, this separation is often peaceful and filled with anticipation. These souls, having nurtured their spiritual selves during life, find the transition easier and are more prepared for what lies ahead. However, for those who have lived far from God, this moment can be more challenging. The sudden realization of spiritual realities can be overwhelming for souls unprepared for this journey. Yet even in this, Padre Pio emphasizes God's boundless mercy. He teaches that in these final moments, God grants every soul a last opportunity to turn towards Him. This initial separation, Padre Pio explains, is just the beginning of the soul's journey. As the soul becomes fully detached from the physical world, it begins to perceive spiritual realities with unprecedented clarity. The true nature of existence, obscured during earthly life, starts to reveal itself. In this state, the soul begins to understand the temporary nature of earthly concerns and the eternal significance of spiritual matters. Worldly achievements and material possessions lose their importance, while acts of love, kindness, and faith take on new meaning. Padre Pio teaches that this moment of separation is crucial for understanding the true purpose of our earthly lives. It's a time when the soul recognizes that every action, every choice made during life has prepared it for this very moment. As the soul completes its separation from the body, it prepares for the next phase of its journey, an encounter with divine light that will illuminate every aspect of its earthly existence. This approaching light, Padre Pio reveals, is both inviting and revealing, setting the stage for a profound spiritual experience. The teachings of Padre Pio on this initial phase after death offer us valuable insights. They remind us of the importance of living each day with awareness of our spiritual nature. By understanding this process, we can approach our own mortality not with fear, but with hope and preparedness. As we consider these revelations, let's reflect on how this knowledge might change the way we live. How might we nurture our spiritual selves today, knowing the journey that awaits us? Padre Pio's wisdom invites us to live each day as a preparation for this ultimate transition. After the soul separates from the body, Padre Pio reveals that it experiences an extraordinary encounter, a meeting with divine light. This light, he explains, is not just a visual phenomenon, but a profound spiritual experience that envelops the soul in love and compassion. As the soul approaches this light, it experiences a sense of warmth and welcome unlike anything known in earthly life. Padre Pio describes this light as the very essence of God's presence, radiating pure love and understanding. For souls that have lived in communion with God, this moment is one of joyful reunion. They recognize the light as the source of the love they've sought throughout their lives. However, for those who have distanced themselves from God, this encounter can be a moment of deep reflection and even discomfort. The light, in its perfect purity, reveals every aspect of the soul's journey. In its presence, all pretenses fall away, and the truth of one's life is laid bare. Padre Pio teaches that in this moment, God does not judge, but allows the soul to see itself clearly, perhaps for the first time. The light illuminates every choice, every action, every thought with perfect clarity. This self-realization can be a moment of profound joy for some and a moment of regret for others. In this divine light, the soul begins to understand the true impact of its earthly life. Acts of kindness, love, and faith shine brightly, while moments of selfishness or harm to others become painfully evident. Yet Padre Pio emphasizes that even in this revelation, God's mercy is ever present. The encounter with the divine light serves multiple purposes. First, it provides the soul with a clear understanding of its spiritual state. This clarity is essential for the next stages of the soul's journey. Second, it offers a glimpse of the ultimate goal, eternal union with God. This vision can inspire hope and longing in the soul. Padre Pio explains that the intensity of this light can be overwhelming for souls unprepared for its brilliance. He likens it to stepping into bright sunlight after being in a dark room. The soul may need time to adjust, to comprehend the vastness of the love and truth it's experiencing. During this encounter, the soul also becomes aware of a profound sense of peace and timelessness. Earthly concerns and worries fade away in the presence of this all-encompassing light. The soul begins to understand the eternal nature of its existence and the temporary nature of earthly trials. For some souls, this encounter with the divine light may be brief, while for others it may seem to last an eternity. Padre Pio teaches that the duration and intensity of this experience can vary based on the soul's readiness and spiritual state. In this light, the soul may also become aware of the presence of loved ones who have passed before. These spirits, Padre Pio says, can offer comfort and guidance, helping the soul understand its new reality. The encounter with divine light is not just a passive experience. Padre Pio reveals that it's a moment of choice. Even at this stage, the soul has the freedom to embrace or turn away from this love. This choice, made in the clarity of divine presence, can influence the soul's ultimate destination. As the soul basks in this light, it begins to prepare for the next phase of its journey, a comprehensive review of its earthly life. This review, illuminated by the divine light, will provide the soul with a complete understanding of its journey and prepare it for what lies ahead. Padre Pio's teachings about this encounter with divine light offer us profound insights into the nature of God's love and the importance of our spiritual preparation. They remind us that every act of love, every moment of faith, prepares us for this ultimate encounter. As we reflect on these revelations, we might ask ourselves, how can we live today in a way that prepares us for this divine encounter? How can we cultivate a relationship with God that will make this moment one of joy rather than regret? Padre Pio's wisdom challenges us to live each day with awareness of this coming light, to make choices that align our souls with divine love, and to cultivate a spirit that will recognize and rejoice in God's presence when that momentous encounter comes. As the soul basks in the divine light, Padre Pio teaches that it enters a profound state of reflection, the life review. This process, he explains, is like watching a vivid, all-encompassing movie of one's entire existence, from birth to the final moments of life. During this review, the soul doesn't just passively observe its past. Instead, it re-experiences every moment with a new, heightened awareness. Every action, thought, and decision becomes clear, along with their far-reaching consequences. The soul sees not only what it did, but also how its actions affected others, rippling out through time in ways that were invisible during earthly life. Padre Pio reveals that in this state, the soul gains a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. It sees how a single act of kindness could brighten not just one life, but many. Conversely, it also witnesses how moments of selfishness or cruelty cast long shadows, affecting more people than one might have realized. This review isn't about judgment, Padre Pio emphasizes. Rather, it's a moment of truth and self-realization. The soul sees itself as it truly is, stripped of all illusions and self-deceptions. This can be a moment of great joy for those who lived lives of love and service, as they witness the full extent of the good they've done. For others, it may be a humbling experience, as they confront the reality of opportunities missed and love withheld. In this review, Padre Pio says, even the smallest acts of love shine like brilliant stars. A kind word spoken to a stranger, a moment of patience with a child, a silent prayer for an enemy, all these are revealed in their true, eternal significance. Similarly, every instance where one chose fear over love, selfishness over generosity, or indifference over compassion is seen with painful clarity. The life review also reveals the hidden graces and divine interventions that shaped one's journey. Moments that seemed insignificant at the time are now seen as pivotal, guided by a loving hand. The soul recognizes the countless times it was protected, guided, and blessed, often without realizing it. Padre Pio teaches that this review serves multiple purposes. It allows the soul to understand the true nature of its earthly journey and its spiritual growth. It provides a clear picture of where the soul stands in relation to God's love and truth. And it prepares the soul for the next phase of its journey, whether that be immediate union with God, a period of purification, or in some cases, a state of separation from divine love. During this review, the soul also sees missed opportunities, times when it could have grown in love or faith but chose not to. Yet, Padre Pio emphasizes that even in these moments, God's mercy is evident. The soul understands that every challenge, every hardship, was an opportunity for growth and closeness to God. The life review isn't limited to one's actions. Padre Pio reveals that it also encompasses one's beliefs, attitudes, and the state of one's heart. The soul sees how its faith, or lack thereof, shaped its journey, how its trust in God, or its doubts, influenced its path. This comprehensive review can feel like an eternity, though Padre Pio suggests it happens in an instant outside of earthly time. In this timeless moment, the soul gains a complete understanding of its life's purpose, its successes and failures in fulfilling that purpose, and the boundless love of God that surrounded it at every moment. As the life review concludes, the soul stands in complete self-knowledge. It understands its strengths and weaknesses, its triumphs and failures. This self-knowledge, Padre Pio teaches, is crucial for the next stage of the soul's journey, the spiritual judgment. Padre Pio's revelations about the life review offer us profound insights into the importance of every moment of our lives. They challenge us to live with greater awareness, to recognize the eternal significance of our choices, and to cultivate a life of love and service. As we reflect on these teachings, we might ask ourselves, how would our lives change if we lived each day as if it would be part of this review? How can we cultivate greater awareness of the impact of our actions, not just on ourselves, but on all those around us? Padre Pio's wisdom invites us to see our lives through the lens of eternity, to recognize the profound importance of every choice we make, and to live in a way that will fill our life review with moments of love, faith, and service to others. Following the life review, Padre Pio reveals that the soul faces a crucial moment, the spiritual judgment. This isn't a courtroom scenario with a stern judge, but rather a profound encounter with divine justice and mercy. In this judgment, the soul stands before God in complete transparency. There are no secrets, no hidden thoughts or motivations. Everything is laid bare in the light of divine truth. Padre Pio teaches that this judgment isn't about punishment, but about aligning the soul with its true spiritual state. The criteria for this judgment, according to Padre Pio, are love and faith. How much did the soul love God and others? How did it respond to God's love? How did it live out its faith? These questions form the basis of the spiritual assessment. Padre Pio emphasizes that God's mercy plays a crucial role in this judgment. Even at this stage, Christ intercedes for souls who sought faith and redemption during their earthly lives. The smallest acts of love and faith carry great weight in this divine balance. However, Padre Pio also speaks of divine justice. Souls that consistently rejected love and faith, harmed others, or turned away from God face the consequences of their choices. Yet, even here, God's love remains present, respecting the soul's free will. During this judgment, Padre Pio says, angels and saints may act as witnesses, testifying to the good deeds done in secret, the prayers offered, the sacrifices made. These testimonies highlight God's grace working in the soul's life. The soul also participates actively in this judgment. With the clarity gained from the life review, it can now see its true spiritual state. Many souls, Padre Pio teaches, judge themselves, recognizing where they stand in relation to God's love. This judgment isn't just about past actions. It also considers the soul's current state, its desire for God, its openness to love, its willingness to grow and be purified. Padre Pio reveals that some souls, upon seeing God's love, experience instant conversion and purification. The outcome of this judgment, according to Padre Pio, determines the soul's immediate destiny, whether it's ready for the fullness of God's presence, heaven, needs further purification, purgatory, or has chosen permanent separation from God, hell. Padre Pio stresses that this judgment, while definitive, is also an expression of God's love. It respects the soul's free will and its fundamental orientation toward or away from love. It's not about punishment, but about the soul finding its rightful place in the spiritual realm. This teaching on spiritual judgment offers both comfort and challenge. It reminds us of God's endless mercy, but also of our responsibility to live lives of love and faith. It encourages us to trust in God's love, but also to actively participate in our spiritual growth. Padre Pio's insights invite us to live each day with awareness of this future judgment. How can we cultivate a life that aligns with God's love? How can we prepare our souls for this ultimate encounter with divine truth? As we reflect on these revelations, we're called to examine our lives, to seek reconciliation where needed, and to grow in love and faith. Padre Pio's teachings remind us that every day is an opportunity to prepare for this momentous spiritual assessment. After the spiritual judgment, Padre Pio teaches that the soul moves to its destination, heaven, purgatory, or hell. Each destination reflects the soul's relationship with God and its spiritual state. Heaven, according to Padre Pio, is a state of complete union with God. It's not just a place, but a condition of perfect love, joy, and peace. Souls in heaven experience the fullness of God's presence, free from all suffering and limitations. They participate in divine life, continuing to grow in love and knowledge of God. Purgatory, Padre Pio explains, is a state of purification. Souls who love God but still carry the effects of sin undergo a cleansing process. This purification, while sometimes painful, is ultimately a journey of hope. Souls in purgatory are assured of eventually reaching heaven. Padre Pio emphasizes the importance of praying for these souls, as our prayers can aid their purification. Hell, Padre Pio teaches, is the state of those who definitively reject God's love. It's not a punishment imposed by God, but the consequence of a soul's free choice to permanently separate itself from the source of all love and goodness. Padre Pio describes this state as one of profound loneliness and regret. Padre Pio stresses that God desires all souls to be saved. Even until the last moment, God offers the grace of conversion. However, He respects our free will, allowing us to choose our eternal destiny. These teachings on the soul's destinations underscore the importance of our earthly choices. They remind us that our actions have eternal consequences, shaping our relationship with God and determining our ultimate destiny. Padre Pio's revelations invite us to live with eternity in mind. How can we orient our lives towards heaven? How can we cultivate a deeper relationship with God that prepares us for eternal union with Him? As we contemplate these truths, we're called to a life of greater love, faith, and service. Padre Pio's wisdom challenges us to view our daily choices through the lens of eternity, recognizing their profound impact on our soul's journey. Padre Pio's revelations about the first hour after death offer profound insights into our spiritual journey. They remind us that death is not the end, but a transition to eternal life. The separation of soul and body, the encounter with divine light, the life review, the spiritual judgment, and the soul's final destination. Each stage emphasizes the importance of how we live our earthly lives. Padre Pio's teachings call us to live with greater awareness, love, and faith. They invite us to prepare for our eternal destiny through prayer, acts of kindness, and a deepening relationship with God. Let these revelations inspire you to live each day with purpose and love. Embrace the opportunities for spiritual growth that life presents. Remember, every act of love, every prayer, every moment of faith prepares us for that crucial first hour after death. If these teachings have touched your heart, please leave a thank you in the comments. Your engagement helps spread these valuable messages to others who may need them. Consider becoming a member of this channel to support our mission of sharing spiritual wisdom. Together, we can create a community where peace and harmony become a reality in every home. May Padre Pio's insights guide us on our journey towards eternal life. Something extraordinary happened on a summer morning in 1953. Padre Pio was praying in the small chapel when suddenly he stopped mid-prayer, his eyes fixed on something invisible to everyone else. The other friars noticed how his scarred hands began to tremble, not with pain, but with what seemed like recognition. Later, he would tell his spiritual director, "I saw him, the Matamoros. St. James was there, and he showed me the 3 keys that unlock impossible paths." What Padre Pio witnessed that morning would change how he guided souls for the rest of his life. Because St. James didn't just appear to comfort him, he came with a mission: to reveal the 3 specific actions that make demons flee and cause heaven to intervene in human affairs. 3 things, not 2, not 10, exactly 3. And when a soul does these 3 things on July 25th, the feast of St. James, something breaks in the spiritual realm, like ice cracking under the weight of spring water. Today is July 25th. And if you're hearing this message, it's no coincidence. Because somewhere in the unseen world, St. James the Greater, the first apostle to shed his blood for Christ, the warrior who appears on white horses in spiritual battles, is preparing to ride into your situation. But he needs you to open the door. He needs you to do the 3 things that Padre Pio saw, understood, and taught to desperate souls for decades. Do you have a path that seems permanently blocked? A prayer that feels like it never reaches heaven? A family situation that grows worse despite your efforts? Then stay until the end, because today might be the day everything changes. Write in the comments right now, "St. James, open my path, and let heaven know you're ready to receive what's coming." St. James wasn't just any apostle, he was fire incarnate. When Jesus called him and his brother John sons of thunder, it wasn't because they spoke softly. These were men who wanted to call down lightning from heaven to destroy entire cities that rejected their master. They had a holy violence, a sacred fury that burned against injustice and evil. And when James became the first apostle to die for Christ, spilling his blood in Jerusalem around 44 AD, heaven gave him something special: the authority to break spiritual chains. Padre Pio understood this like few others. He could see into the spiritual realm as clearly as you and I see the morning sky. And what he saw about St. James was extraordinary. This wasn't just a saint who intercedes quietly from heaven. This was a warrior who descends to fight alongside those who call upon him with genuine faith. The mystical body of Christ has generals, and James is one of them. But here's what most people miss, and what Padre Pio emphasized over and over. Saints don't just respond to wishful thinking. They respond to action, to decision, to souls who are willing to do what it takes. And when it comes to St. James, there are 3 specific actions that activate his intercession, like keys turning in ancient locks. The first key is what Padre Pio called confession that tears veils. Not just any confession. Not the kind we make out of habit or obligation, rushing through a list of faults without real sorrow. But confession that reaches the core, that acknowledges the root, that doesn't just touch the surface of sin, but digs deep into the soil where spiritual bondage takes root. Listen, dear soul, and this is crucial. Most of our blocked paths aren't blocked by circumstances. They're blocked by spiritual debris, unforgiven sins, unhealed wounds, unrepented patterns that give the enemy legal ground in our lives. When Padre Pio looked at people, he could see these spiritual tangles like cobwebs covering a person's destiny. But before we continue with this profound teaching, I want to share something that can deepen your understanding of Padre Pio's spiritual wisdom. I've prepared a special guide called The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection, and Divine Graces. This isn't just another religious booklet. It's a collection of Padre Pio's most powerful teachings about prayer, spiritual warfare, and how to access the supernatural help that heaven wants to give you. In these pages, you'll discover the specific prayers Padre Pio used when facing impossible situations, the mysteries of the Rosary that he said could shake hell itself, and testimonies of people whose lives were completely transformed by following his guidance. If you want to experience the kind of spiritual breakthrough that makes saints like James take notice, this guide will show you exactly how Padre Pio did it. Look for the link in the description, and let this be another step in opening your spiritual path. Now, back to that first key. confession that tears veils. There was a woman named Sarah who came to Padre Pio in desperation. Her teenage son had been involved with drugs for 3 years. Her marriage was crumbling. Her faith was hanging by a thread. She had confessed her sins regularly, but nothing changed. Padre Pio looked at her with those penetrating eyes and said, "My daughter, you confess your actions, but you haven't confessed your heart. You haven't wept for the pride that built walls between you and your family. You haven't mourned the bitterness that poisoned your home." That day, Sarah made what she later called the confession that broke everything open. She didn't just list her sins, she mourned them. She didn't just ask for forgiveness, she begged for transformation. She stayed in that confessional until her heart felt raw and empty and clean. Within 2 weeks, her son came home. Within a month, her husband asked to start over. Within 3 months, their home was filled with peace they hadn't known in years. Coincidence? Never. Because when a soul purifies itself completely, heaven takes notice. And St. James, who gave everything for Christ, intercedes powerfully for those who are willing to give everything in return. Don't postpone what could open your path today. Find a priest. Make that confession. Today is July 25th. Let it be the day your spiritual chains break. The second key that Padre Pio saw in his vision of St. James is what he called the militant rosary, not the automatic rosary. Not the distracted rosary you pray while doing dishes or scrolling through your phone, but the rosary wielded like a sword, gripped like a shield, fired like arrows straight into the heart of spiritual darkness. Here's something most Catholics don't realize. Padre Pio prayed 15 complete rosaries every single day. 15. When people asked him how he found the time, he would smile and say, "You ask me how I find time for my weapon. I should ask you how you find time to live without yours." For Padre Pio, the rosary wasn't devotion, it was warfare, and St. James understood this perfectly. Historical chronicles tell us that during the great battles of medieval times, Christian soldiers reported seeing a warrior on a white horse fighting alongside them, his sword flashing like lightning, cutting through enemy lines with supernatural strength. They called him Santiago Matamoros, St. James the Moor Slayer. But here's what they didn't record in those ancient texts. In many of those same battles, Christian armies were praying the rosary as they fought. The connection isn't coincidental. When you pray the rosary with intention, with focus, with the understanding that each Hail Mary is a strike against evil, you're calling down the same warrior who appeared to Padre Pio in 1953. You're activating the same spiritual artillery that has toppled kingdoms of darkness for centuries. But listen carefully. There's a specific way to pray the rosary that opens spiritual doors. Padre Pio taught that each mystery isn't just something to think about, it's something to enter. When you pray the joyful mysteries, you don't just remember the Annunciation. You place yourself in that room with Mary, feeling her surprise, her fear, her ultimate surrender. When you pray the sorrowful mysteries, you don't just think about the crucifixion, you kneel at the foot of the cross, letting the reality of Jesus' sacrifice tear your heart open. This is the difference between a routine rosary and a militant rosary. One goes through the motions, the other goes to war. Every Ave Maria becomes a battering ram against the gates of hell. Every Hail Mary full of grace becomes a proclamation that grace is still available, still flowing, still powerful enough to transform any situation. Every Holy Mary, Mother of God, becomes a reminder that the woman who said yes to the impossible is still saying yes for you today. Do you want to see changes in your life? Do you want to witness St. James ride into your circumstances with his spiritual sword drawn? Then commit to the rosary today, not just today, but every day. not just as a prayer, but as an act of war against everything that opposes God's will for your life. Here's what I want you to do right now. Before this day ends, find your rosary. If you don't have one, use your fingers. Begin with the sorrowful mysteries. Let the suffering of Christ remind you that your suffering has meaning too. Pray each Hail Mary slowly, deliberately, as if your life depends on it, because in the spiritual realm, it does. And as you pray, picture St. James on his white horse, charging ahead of you, cutting through the spiritual opposition that has kept your prayers from being answered, your paths from opening, your miracles from manifesting. See him wielding his sword in one hand and his rosary in the other, because the greatest warriors of heaven know that the most powerful weapon isn't made of steel, it's made of prayer. When you finish that rosary tonight, you'll feel something different, a lightness, a clarity, a sense that something has shifted in the unseen world. That's St. James responding to your militant prayer. That's heaven taking notice of your spiritual warfare. Don't pray just one rosary today. If possible, pray 3, one for your family, one for your needs, one for the conversion of hearts that seem impossible to reach. Because when the enemy sees a soul armed with the rosary, calling upon St. James on his feast day, he knows his time is running out. The third key that Padre Pio received in his mystical encounter with St. James is the most challenging of all. It's also the most powerful. He called it love that hides from human eyes, but shines like fire in the courts of heaven. This is charity done in secret, kindness offered without witnesses, love given without credit or recognition. Here's where most people stumble. We want miracles, but we're stingy with mercy. We cry out for God's intervention, but we withhold our own intervention in the lives around us. We beg heaven to notice our needs while we ignore the needs of our neighbors. But St. James, the same man who wanted to call down fire from heaven, learned something profound about the nature of divine power. It flows through hidden channels. Think about James's life before he became an apostle. He was a fisherman, which meant he understood currents. He knew that the strongest currents often run deep, invisible to those looking only at the surface. When Jesus called him to become a fisher of men, James discovered that the same principle applies in the spiritual realm. The love that changes the world moves beneath the surface, in secret acts that no one sees except God. Padre Pio lived this truth every day. Yes, he had the stigmata, the bleeding wounds that made him famous. Yes, people traveled from around the world to see him, but his most powerful miracles didn't happen in public. They happened in the confessional, in private conversations, in letters he wrote to struggling souls, in small acts of kindness that nobody photographed or recorded. He would often say, "One hidden act of charity can save more souls than 1,000 sermons," and he proved it over and over again. When people came to him asking for miracles, he rarely told them to pray more or fast longer. Instead, he would say, "Go find someone who needs what you need and give it to them, then watch what God does." Let me tell you about Michael, a businessman who was facing bankruptcy. His company was failing, his employees were losing hope, and his family was under tremendous stress. He came to Padre Pio desperate for a financial miracle. Padre Pio listened to his story, then asked a simple question. When was the last time you helped someone financially? Michael was confused. "Father, I can't help anyone. I'm the one who needs help." Padre Pio smiled. "And my son, heaven's economics work differently than earth's economics. You want God to pour into your empty cup, but your cup has a hole in the bottom. That hole is selfishness. Plug it with generosity and watch what happens." That same week, despite his desperate financial situation, Michael secretly paid the rent for an elderly neighbor who was facing eviction. He took money from his emergency fund, money he couldn't afford to lose, and left it anonymously in her mailbox. He told no one. He asked for no recognition. He simply acted out of the love that Padre Pio had stirred in his heart. Within 10 days, Michael received a call from a potential investor he had contacted months earlier and forgotten about. The man wanted to not only invest in Michael's company, but to become a full partner. Within 3 months, the business was not only saved, but thriving. Michael never told anyone about the connection between his secret gift and his unexpected blessing, but he knew heaven had responded to his hidden charity with visible grace. This is how St. James operates. He fought visible battles with an invisible weapon, love. He conquered territories not just with his sword, but with his service. The Chronicles tell us about his battles, but they don't tell us about the countless acts of kindness he performed as he traveled through the lands he was evangelizing. Today, right now, before this day ends, find someone who needs what you need. If you need financial provision, provide for someone else financially, even in a small way. If you need healing, care for someone who is sick. If you need forgiveness, forgive someone who has hurt you. If you need love, love someone who seems unlovable. Do it in secret. Tell no one. Seek no credit. Let it be between you and heaven. Then watch how St. James responds to your hidden charity with public miracles, because the love that no one sees is the love that moves the invisible world. Now here's where the real power emerges. Padre Pio didn't just see 3 separate actions in his vision of St. James. He saw them working together like gears in a cosmic machine, each one amplifying the power of the others. When confession purifies the soul, the Rosary becomes more potent. When the Rosary is prayed with a clean heart, acts of hidden charity flow naturally. And when all 3 operate together, something extraordinary happens in the spiritual realm. Think of it like this. Confession is the key that opens the door. The Rosary is the light that illuminates the path. And secret charity is the bridge that carries you across. But when you use all 3 keys on the same day, especially on July 25th, the feast of St. James, you're not just opening a door or crossing a bridge. You're activating what Padre Pio called the full authority of heaven. Here's the specific sequence that Padre Pio recommended for maximum spiritual impact. First, make a thorough confession, holding nothing back, mourning not just your sins, but the patterns behind them. This clears the spiritual atmosphere around your life, removing the interference that blocks heaven's signals. Then immediately afterward, pray a complete Rosary with total focus, seeing each mystery as a doorway into the heart of God. This establishes a direct line of communication with the supernatural world. Finally, within 24 hours of your confession and Rosary, perform an act of secret charity that costs you something real. Not spare change, not leftover time, but something that requires sacrifice. This demonstrates to heaven that your prayer isn't just about receiving, it's about becoming a channel through which God's love can flow to others. When these 3 actions combine, they create what spiritual directors call a perfect storm of grace. The confession removes obstacles, the Rosary calls down power, and the charity proves your sincerity. It's like creating the perfect conditions for lightning to strike. And St. James, the son of thunder, knows exactly how to direct that lightning into your circumstances. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't magic, and it's not manipulation. You can't use these 3 keys to force God's hand or guarantee specific outcomes. What you can do is position yourself in the flow of divine grace, align yourself with heaven's agenda, and demonstrate that you're serious about spiritual transformation. The signs that St. James is responding to your 3-key prayer are usually subtle at first. You might notice that obstacles that seemed permanent suddenly become movable. Conversations that have been impossible for years suddenly become possible. Doors that have been locked tight begin to creak open, just enough for you to see light on the other side. People often ask Padre Pio how long it takes to see results after using these 3 keys. His answer was always the same: God works outside of time, but faith works inside of obedience. Keep doing the three things and keep watching for God to move. Sometimes the miracle is immediate, sometimes it's gradual. But when a soul truly surrenders through confession, warfare through the Rosary, and love through charity, heaven always responds. Today is July 25th. Today is St. James's Day. Today, these three keys have special power because you're not just praying to a saint. You're joining a feast, participating in a celebration that all of heaven is observing. When you confess today, you're confessing on the day when St. James's intercession is strongest. When you pray the Rosary today, you're praying with the full attention of the warrior saint. When you perform secret charity today, you're offering it on the altar of his feast. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't postpone until you feel more ready. The enemy wants you to delay because he knows that spiritual momentum is real, and today's momentum is extraordinary. Find a priest for confession. Find your Rosary for warfare. Find someone who needs love for charity. Use all three keys today. Watch what St. James does in response. Because when heaven sees a soul that's serious about spiritual breakthrough, heaven responds with breakthrough power. The path that has been blocked is about to open. The prayer that seemed unheard is about to be answered. The miracle you've been waiting for is about to unfold. Dear soul who has listened to this message, you now hold something precious in your hands. Not just information, but revelation. Not just knowledge, but keys. The same three keys that Padre Pio saw when St. James appeared to him on that extraordinary morning in 1953. Confession that tears, veils, and breaks spiritual chains. The militant Rosary that wages war against darkness. Secret charity that moves the very heart of God. These aren't just spiritual exercises. They're weapons of divine warfare, tools of supernatural transformation, bridges between your current reality and the miracle that heaven has prepared for you. Today is July 25th. Today is your day. Today, St. James rides from the courts of heaven with his sword drawn and his heart burning with desire to open the path that has been closed in your life. But he cannot ride alone. He needs you to ride with him. He needs you to take action. He needs you to use the keys. Before this day ends, find a confessor. Pour out your heart completely, holding nothing back. Then take your Rosary and pray it like your life depends on it, because in the spiritual realm, it does. Finally, find someone who needs what you need, and give it to them in secret, expecting nothing in return except the joy of participating in God's love. Write in the comments, I will use the three keys today. Declare it, proclaim it, let heaven hear your commitment. And share this message with someone who needs hope, because you might be the instrument St. James uses to change another life. May St. James ride before you, opening every blocked path. May Padre Pio intercede beside you, strengthening your faith. And may the Blessed Virgin Mary cover you with her mantle of protection as you step boldly into the miracle that God has prepared. You are not alone. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. Today, heaven wants to open your path. Today, St. James draws his sword in your defense. Today, everything can change. Go now and use the keys. Your breakthrough is waiting. Have you ever stopped to think about the power of the words that come out of your mouth? Have you noticed how a single word can change the entire atmosphere of your home? Many times we don't realize it, but from our tongue life can spring forth, or death. Padre Pio, the stigmatized friar who could see straight into human souls, discovered something that modern psychology is just beginning to understand. Your home has a spiritual immune system, and certain words act like viruses that can completely destroy it. He warned, the tongue can be an instrument of holiness, or it can be the rope with which the devil drags a soul to hell. I'm going to reveal 5 specific words that are so spiritually toxic, they can literally invite demonic oppression into your living room. 5 words that seem harmless, but work like spiritual termites, slowly eating away at the foundation of peace in your home. And if you've been wondering why your teenager suddenly became rebellious, why your marriage feels cold, why arguments explode over nothing, the answer might be hiding in the words you've been speaking without realizing their devastating power. If you believe that words have the power to transform your home, write in the comments, Padre Pio, help me sanctify my home. Your participation doesn't just help this message reach more families, it creates a spiritual agreement that God will honor in your own home. What I'm about to share isn't just spiritual advice. It's spiritual warfare strategy that could be the key to rescuing your family from forces you didn't even know were attacking you. But here's what's incredible. Just as these words can destroy, when you replace them with words of blessing, your home can become a little piece of heaven on earth. By the end of this message, you'll know exactly which words to eliminate and exactly what to say instead. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn could change everything about the atmosphere in your home. The first word that should never pollute your home's atmosphere is shit, and all vulgar profanity like it. I know some of you might think this is obvious, but hear me out. There's something happening in the spiritual realm when these words are spoken that most people completely miss. Have you ever noticed that when someone drops a curse word like shit, the atmosphere becomes heavy, tense, almost as if something breaks in the air? The saints used to say that angels withdraw from places where there are dirty words, because these words don't praise God, but offend him deeply. They create what Padre Pio called spiritual cracks, through which darkness can enter your home. Padre Pio was extremely strict about this. He would harshly rebuke anyone who used profanity because he said that the devil hides in coarse language and feeds on verbal filth. Every time you let a word like shit slip in your home, you're essentially giving the enemy permission to make himself comfortable in your living room, at your dinner table, in your children's bedrooms. But here's what will shock you. Your children's minds are like sponges, and they absorb not just the words, but the spiritual atmosphere those words create. A home where profanity is common becomes a home where other ugly things start feeling normal too. Disrespect, rebellion, anger, they all follow in the wake of vulgar language. Think about it this way. Your home isn't just a physical space. It's a spiritual sanctuary that God wants to protect and bless. When words like shit fill the air, it's like opening windows to let polluted air contaminate the pure atmosphere that should exist where your family lives, loves, and grows. I remember Padre Pio telling someone who struggled with this habit, every time you feel the urge to curse, say, Hail Mary, full of grace instead, and you'll see how the environment changes. It might sound simple, but this holy man understood something profound about spiritual warfare. When you replace a curse with a prayer, you're not just avoiding saying something bad, you're actively inviting Mary, the Mother of God, into that moment. You're choosing light over darkness, blessing over curse, hope over frustration. And your family feels this change, even if they can't explain it. Want a home filled with peace? Start by cleaning up your language. Every profane word is like a small invitation to chaos. But every prayer, every blessing, every word of gratitude is an invitation for angels to make themselves at home with your family. But there's another word that can be even more destructive, especially when directed at the people we love most. The second word that should never be used in your home is stupid, along with its equally devastating cousins, idiot and moron. These might seem less serious than profanity, but Padre Pio knew they could cause even deeper wounds to the soul, especially when spoken to children. Many times parents, in a moment of anger or frustration, let these words slip. You're so stupid. Don't be an idiot. What's wrong with you? Are you a moron? And you know what happens. These words stick like thorns in the heart and leave marks that last a lifetime. Here's what most parents don't realize. Children don't have the emotional sophistication to separate temporary disappointment from permanent identity. When you say you're stupid because they made a mistake, their developing mind doesn't hear mom is frustrated about this situation. They hear, mom has discovered my true nature and I am fundamentally flawed. The devil takes advantage of these insults to plant complexes, insecurities, and even depression. A child who constantly hears that they're stupid begins to believe it. They carry that label into adulthood, into their relationships, into their careers. What started as an angry outburst becomes a generational curse that affects their entire life. Padre Pio used to say, "A harsh word can kill more than a weapon." He wasn't exaggerating. These emotional wounds often hurt longer and deeper than physical injuries. A broken bone heals, but a broken spirit, wounded by the very people who should be building it up, can take decades to recover. But here's the beautiful truth that Padre Pio taught. Every curse can be transformed into a blessing. Instead of saying you're stupid, you can say you're learning and God has given you a good mind. Instead of idiot, you can say you made a mistake, but you're intelligent and you'll figure this out. Instead of moron, you can declare you're created in God's image and He doesn't make mistakes. When you bless instead of curse, when you build up instead of tear down, you're cooperating with God's plan for that person. You're speaking their true identity as a child of God, created with dignity and intelligence. And amazingly, people tend to rise to meet the expectations we set with our words. I've seen marriages saved when spouses stopped calling each other stupid during arguments and started speaking words of respect and appreciation. I've seen rebellious teenagers transform when their parents replaced "you're such an idiot" with "you're smart enough to make better choices." Your words have the power to shape the people you love. Every time you speak to someone in your family, you're either building up their sense of worth or tearing it down. The word stupid is one of the most effective weapons the enemy has for destroying self-esteem and confidence. But there's a third word that goes beyond hurting feelings and actually invites supernatural oppression into your family. You know, as I'm sharing these truths with you, I'm reminded of how Padre Pio always emphasized that our greatest weapon against spiritual attack is the Holy Rosary. He called it the weapon that puts demons to flight and said that no home could be fully protected without the regular recitation of this powerful prayer. That's exactly why we've created something special for families like yours who are serious about spiritual warfare and protecting their homes. It's called The Power of the Rosary with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection, and Divine Graces. This spiritual treasure will help you learn to pray the Rosary with more devotion and depth. Discover the miracles and testimonies of those who have already experienced its power. Learn Padre Pio's most impactful teachings and phrases about prayer. Receive a 30-day prayer guide with daily intentions to strengthen your faith, and access special prayers for protection, healing, and liberation. The Rosary was Padre Pio's greatest weapon, and today it can be yours too. Don't miss this opportunity to strengthen your spiritual life with material that has already helped thousands of people. To download it, just click on the link pinned in the comments. Now, let me tell you about the third word that can literally create spiritual contracts for demonic oppression. The third word that should never come out of your mouth in your home is when you speak actual curses. Harmful wishes cast like poison. I hope everything goes wrong for you. May bad things happen to you. I curse the day you were born, or simply declaring, this is a curse on our family. The book of Proverbs says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Every time you curse someone, you invoke spiritual death over your home, over your family, over yourself. Padre Pio taught that demons wait for these words like they were contracts, and then they execute them. Here's what will terrify you. When you speak a curse, even in anger, even without really meaning it, you're participating in a spiritual legal system that most people don't even know exists. You're essentially filing paperwork in the spiritual realm that gives permission for harm to come to that person. But here's what's even more tragic. Sometimes we curse ourselves and our families without realizing it. This family is cursed. Nothing good ever happens to us. We're doomed to fail. Bad luck follows us everywhere. Every time you make these declarations, you're agreeing with the enemy's plan to steal, kill, and destroy everything God wants to bless in your life. Padre Pio met a woman who had been saying for years, "This family is cursed. Nothing good ever happens to us." And guess what? Nothing good did happen to them. Job loss after job loss, sickness after sickness, relationship after relationship falling apart. She thought she was just observing reality, but she was actually creating it with her words. When Padre Pio explained this to her, she was horrified. "But Father, how do I undo years of curses I've spoken over my own family?" His answer was brilliant. Every curse can be broken by a blessing that's more powerful. Start speaking God's promises over your family with the same consistency that you've been speaking destruction. Declare His favor, His protection, His provision. Make your mouth a fountain of life instead of a well of poison. She went home and began what she called aggressive blessing. Every morning, she would walk through her house and declare, "This home is blessed by the Most High God. This family walks in divine favor. Goodness and mercy follow us all the days of our lives." Within 6 months, everything changed. Her husband got a promotion. Her daughter became an honor student. Her son found a mentor and turned his life around. The same mouth that had been partnering with hell to destroy her family became a partner with heaven to bless and prosper them. If curses have been spoken in your house, today you can break those chains with a prayer of liberation. Sprinkle holy water in every room, place a saint, Benedict medal at your entrance, and proclaim with faith, "In this house Jesus Christ reigns and no curse can stand." But there's another word that acts like spiritual acid, dissolving the bonds of love that hold families together. The fourth word that should never be allowed to take root in your home is hate. Saying, "I hate you" to a family member, or even, "I hate this house. I hate my life. I hate everything about this situation." Hatred is a poison that consumes the soul and destroys the peace of the home. Padre Pio used to say, "Where there is hatred, God cannot dwell," and the Virgin Mary, in her apparitions around the world, always calls us to forgiveness, because forgiveness disarms the devil. When you pronounce hatred, you invite darkness to remain and multiply in your home. But let's be honest here. Sometimes the wound is so deep, the betrayal so painful, the hurt so raw that the word hate feels like the only word strong enough to express what you're feeling. The family member who should have loved you chose to hurt you instead. The spouse who promised to cherish you broke your heart. The child you sacrificed for turned against you. Here's what Padre Pio understood. Hatred doesn't hurt the person it's directed toward as much as it hurts the person carrying it. When you say, "I hate you," you're not punishing them. You're imprisoning yourself. You're allowing their wrong actions to control your emotions, your peace, your relationship with God. I know it's not easy, because sometimes the pain feels unbearable. But if you can say each day, "Jesus, teach me to love as you love," little by little your heart will be healed, and the atmosphere of your house will be illuminated. Here's a powerful truth. Forgiveness isn't a feeling, it's a choice. It's a decision to release the other person from the debt you feel they owe you. Start small. If you can't say, "I love you" to someone who hurt you, start with, "I choose not to hate you." I met a father who had been saying, "I hate you" to his rebellious teenage son for months. The boy had gotten into drugs, stolen from the family, and brought shame on their name. The father felt justified in his hatred. But when Padre Pio's teachings about the power of words reached this family, the father realized he was actually feeding the very rebellion he hated. His words of hatred were giving the enemy legal ground to make his son worse, not better. The transformation began when he replaced "I hate you" with "I'm disappointed in your choices, but I love you and I believe God can change your heart." It wasn't easy. It wasn't natural. But it was supernatural. Within weeks, something shifted in his son. The hatred that had been met with hatred began to melt when it was met with love. The boy, who had been running from a father who hated him, started running toward a father who loved him despite everything. Your choice of words determines whether your home becomes a place where love multiplies or hatred proliferates. Choose carefully, because the enemy is listening, and so is God. But there's one final word that can completely destroy a person's sense of divine purpose and identity. The fifth word that should never be said in your home is disgrace, especially when used to refer to someone. You are a disgrace to this family. This word doesn't just express disappointment, it literally means without grace. And when you apply it to someone, you're declaring that they are beyond God's grace and blessing. Padre Pio suffered when he heard fathers or mothers speak this way about their children, because he said these words leave deep spiritual wounds that are difficult to heal. When you call someone a disgrace, you're making a declaration about their spiritual condition that contradicts everything the gospel teaches about redemption. Think about what you're really saying when you use this word. You're telling someone that they have no grace, no blessing, no favor from God. You're essentially agreeing with the devil's assessment that they are worthless and unredeemable. Children are especially vulnerable to this word. A child who is repeatedly called a disgrace begins to believe they are fundamentally flawed, that they bring shame wherever they go, that they can never measure up to what their family expects. This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that destroys their self-worth for decades. I want to tell you about something that happened in Padre Pio's own ministry. A young man came to him, completely broken, saying, "Father, my entire family calls me a disgrace. I've made so many mistakes, brought so much shame on our name, that I think maybe they're right. Maybe I really am beyond help." Padre Pio looked at him with tears in his eyes and said, "My son, the only disgrace here is that anyone who claims to follow Jesus would ever call one of his beloved children by such a name. You are not a disgrace. You are a grace that your family hasn't learned to recognize yet." That single sentence began a transformation that not only saved the young man's life, but eventually restored his entire family. When he stopped believing he was a disgrace and started believing he was a grace, everything about his life changed. Here's the profound truth Padre Pio taught. Every person carries within them the potential for sainthood, no matter how far they've fallen or how many mistakes they've made. When you call someone a disgrace, you're denying this potential and actually hindering God's work in their life. Want to change this? Today, bless each member of your family by saying, "You are God's grace in my life." Instead of focusing on their failures, start declaring their potential. God's grace is working in you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Your mistakes don't define you. God's love for you does. The most powerful example of this happened with a teenage daughter who had been called the family disgrace for years because of her rebellious behavior. When her parents learned this truth and started blessing her instead of cursing her, something supernatural happened. She later told them, "I was living down to what you called me. When you called me a disgrace, I figured I might as well act like one. But when you started calling me a grace, I wanted to become what you saw in me." Your words have the power to call forth either the worst or the best in the people you love. Which will you choose? My brother, my sister, let me ask you, how many times have these 5 specific words been heard inside your house? Shit, stupid, curse, hate, disgrace. How many times has the enemy entered through the door of your tongue? How many times have you unknowingly invited darkness into the place where your loved ones should feel safest? Don't condemn yourself. Don't drown in guilt. Today, the Lord gives you the opportunity to renew your home, to purify the spiritual environment where your family lives and grows. This is your moment of grace, your chance for transformation. You can do this through frequent confession, which cleanses not just your soul, but the spiritual atmosphere you carry with you. Through the family rosary, which creates a protective shield around your home. Through holy water sprinkled in the rooms, which drives away evil influences. Through the cross of Saint Benedict at your entrance, which declares that your home belongs to Christ, but above all, through words of love, faith, and hope. Through choosing to speak life over death, blessing over curse, encouragement over discouragement, through deciding that your home will be a place where angels feel welcome and demons know they're not wanted. Padre Pio left us a phrase that is medicine for homes. Pray, have hope, and don't worry. Repeat this every day. Teach it to your children. Engrave it on your heart. Remember, the words you speak can be a prayer or a chain of curse. You decide what you want to sow in your house. Starting tonight, make a commitment. These 5 words, shit, stupid, curse, hate, and disgrace, will never again pollute the air your family breathes. Replace them with words that heal, blessing, intelligent, favor, love, and grace. If these teachings have touched your heart, write in the comments, "Thank you, Padre Pio, for showing us the power of our words." Your gesture helps this message reach more families who desperately need to hear this warning to save the peace of their homes. Share this message, because perhaps there's a family out there that urgently needs to hear this alert. Leave your prayer intentions and testimonies, because this space is a spiritual family where we all pray for one another. Let me end by praying with you. Lord Jesus, forgive every dirty word, every insult, every curse, every hatred, and every word that denied your grace in our lives. Wash our mouths with your precious blood. Holy Spirit, dwell in our home. Virgin Mary, cover us with your mantle. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Saint Padre Pio, intercede for our families. Amen. The change begins now. Your home can become the sanctuary that God always intended it to be. Before you go, I want to share something from my heart. Every day, we work to bring you these messages of hope and spiritual guidance, inspired by the wisdom of saints like Padre Pio. But we can't do this alone. We need you, our spiritual family, to help us spread these teachings to more homes that desperately need them. Your support means everything to us. When you hit the like button, you're telling us that this message touched your heart and helped your family. When you share this video, you become a missionary, carrying God's word to families you may never meet, but whose lives you're touching. And when you subscribe and become a member of our channel, you're joining a community of faith that spans the globe. Together, we're not just watching videos. We're building a movement of families committed to making their homes holy sanctuaries. We're creating a network of prayer warriors who support each other in living out the gospel every day. So please, if this message blessed you, bless others by sharing it. If these teachings helped your family, help other families by spreading the word. This is how God's love multiplies, and this is how we can truly make a difference in our world. Thank you for being part of this beautiful mission. God bless you and your family abundantly. Have you ever wondered if you might be making a critical mistake on Ash Wednesday without even realizing it? So many of us go through this sacred day on autopilot, following traditions without truly experiencing their transformative power. But what if I told you that Padre Pio, with his profound spiritual insight, left us specific warnings about errors that could be robbing you of genuine spiritual growth this Lenten season? Today, I'm going to reveal the 5 most common mistakes people make on Ash Wednesday, mistakes that Padre Pio specifically cautioned against, and how avoiding them can lead to the most profound Lenten journey you've ever experienced. This isn't just about following rules or traditions. It's about authentic heart transformation that can change everything about how you experience your faith. Padre Pio wasn't just any spiritual teacher. Marked with the wounds of Christ for 50 years, spending sometimes 18 hours a day in prayer, and blessed with extraordinary spiritual gifts, including reading souls in confession, he understood the difference between empty religious observance and true spiritual transformation. His life was a testament to authenticity and faith, something we desperately need in our world of surface-level spirituality. What makes his guidance so powerful is that Padre Pio knew the human heart intimately. He could see right through the masks we wear and the excuses we make. And on this day that marks the beginning of Lent, his insights are particularly relevant as we receive the ashes that remind us of our mortality and our need for conversion. If you believe in the possibility of true spiritual transformation and want to experience Ash Wednesday and this entire Lenten season with unprecedented depth, write in the comments, "Padre Pio, guide my Lenten journey, and stay with me until the end, because the final mistake he warns about might be the very one holding you back from the spiritual breakthrough you've been longing for." Before we explore the mistakes that Padre Pio warns against, let's understand what Ash Wednesday truly represents. This day isn't merely a Catholic tradition. It's a sacred threshold, a spiritual gateway that invites us into the 40-day journey of Lent, a time of purification, renewal, and preparation for Easter. When the priest marks our forehead with ashes, two profound statements echo through the centuries. The first, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return," from Genesis 3:19. These aren't just somber words about mortality. They're a powerful reminder of our humble origins and inevitable return to dust. In our fast-paced world, where we're constantly distracted from thoughts of our finite nature, this stark reminder serves a crucial purpose. It awakens us to the urgency of spiritual matters. The second statement the priest may use comes from Mark 1:15, "Repent and believe in the gospel." This isn't a casual suggestion, but a compassionate command. The original Greek word for repent, metanoia, means much more than feeling sorry. It signifies a complete change of mind and heart, a radical reorientation of our entire being toward God. But here's where Padre Pio's wisdom becomes especially relevant. He understood that these powerful words and the ashes themselves can become empty symbols if we don't receive them with the right disposition. For Padre Pio, the ashes on our forehead should be visible signs of an invisible reality, our wholehearted commitment to interior transformation. In his many years of spiritual direction, Padre Pio observed how easily people could go through religious motions without allowing them to touch the depths of their souls. The faith that does not become culture is not fully accepted, not entirely thought out, not faithfully lived, he would say, emphasizing that our religious observances must penetrate every aspect of our lives. This brings us to the essential question that Padre Pio would ask each of us today. When you receive the ashes on your forehead, are you merely fulfilling a religious obligation, or are you making a heartfelt commitment to change? Are you just participating in a ritual, or are you embracing a journey of transformation? The answer to this question reveals whether we're falling into the first and perhaps most fundamental mistake that Padre Pio warned against, turning the sacred into mere routine. Let's explore this critical error and how it might be hindering your spiritual growth in ways you've never realized. The first mistake Padre Pio warns against is perhaps the most common and the most dangerous: receiving the ashes as an empty ritual without any genuine intention for conversion. This error turns what should be a profound spiritual moment into a hollow religious formality. Imagine standing in line at church, moving forward mechanically as the line advances, thinking about your to-do list or what you'll have for dinner, and then casually accepting the ashes on your forehead before heading back to your regular life completely unchanged. For too many, This is the extent of their Ash Wednesday experience, a brief interruption to their routine, nothing more. Padre Pio witnessed this spiritual disconnection countless times in his ministry. One particularly powerful story illustrates his perspective. A man once approached Padre Pio's confessional, not out of true repentance, but simply to check the box of confession before Easter. He recited his sins mechanically, without any real sorrow or intention to change. Padre Pio, with his remarkable gift of reading souls, perceived the man's lack of sincerity. With both tenderness and firmness, Padre Pio looked at him and said words that would change this man's life. God is not a simple habit. God is a real commitment to your soul. If you aren't ready to change, you aren't ready for his forgiveness. The man later shared that he felt as though Padre Pio had peeled back the layers of his pretense, exposing the emptiness of his approach to faith. This encounter perfectly illustrates what happens when we reduce Ash Wednesday to a mere ritual. The ashes are meant to be more than dirt on our skin. They should be a physical reminder of an internal commitment. When you feel that slight pressure as the cross is traced on your forehead, that sensation should echo in your heart as a moment of decision. Will this Lent be different? Will I allow myself to be transformed? Padre Pio would often tell his spiritual children, without true contrition, confession is a comedy and communion is sacrilege. The same principle applies to receiving ashes. Without the intention for genuine change, the ritual becomes merely theatrical. We play the part of the penitent without embracing the journey of penitence. The practical solution begins with preparation. Before you even enter the church on Ash Wednesday, take time for honest self-reflection. Ask yourself, what specific areas of my life need conversion? What habits, attitudes, or behaviors am I being called to change? Write these down, pray over them, and bring this awareness with you as you receive the ashes. But there's another mistake that might be even more subtle yet equally damaging to your spiritual growth. A mistake that involves how we present our faith to others rather than how we experience it ourselves. The second mistake Padre Pio cautions against strikes at the heart of our intentions, wearing the ashes out of pride or as a public display of religiosity. This error transforms what should be a humble symbol of repentance into a badge of spiritual superiority. While the previous mistake involves approaching Ash Wednesday too casually, this one involves a different kind of misunderstanding, using a symbol of humility paradoxically as a source of pride. Padre Pio, with his penetrating spiritual insight, observed how easily religious practices can become vehicles for vanity rather than vulnerability before God. Faith is not measured by what men see, but by what God finds in the heart. Padre Pio would often remind his spiritual children. This wisdom echoes Christ's warnings about the Pharisees, who performed their religious duties to be seen and admired by others. The ashes on our forehead are meant to remind us of our mortality and dependence on God, not to announce our piety to the world. I once spoke with a woman who had a powerful realization about this very issue. For years, she had been conscientious about receiving ashes and felt a certain satisfaction when colleagues noticed the mark on her forehead. It made me feel spiritually superior, she admitted, like I was somehow more committed than they were. But during one Lenten reflection, she was struck by the irony of using a symbol of humility as a source of pride. And I realized I was more concerned with appearing devout than actually growing closer to God, she confessed. This realization mirrors Jesus, teaching in Matthew 6:1, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." The ashes are not meant to separate the religious from the non-religious, but to unite us all in the recognition of our common humanity and need for God's mercy. The question Padre Pio would have us ask ourselves is simple but challenging. Am I more concerned with how others perceive my faith than with my actual relationship with God? Do I secretly hope people will notice the ashes on my forehead? Do I find ways to mention my Lenten sacrifices in conversation, These subtle inclinations reveal when our religious observance has drifted from its true purpose. But there's yet another error that compounds these first two mistakes, one that might be limiting the transformative power of Ash Wednesday in your life right now. The third mistake Padre Pio warns against is the dangerous belief that simply participating in Ash Wednesday rituals, attending Mass and receiving ashes, is sufficient spiritual observance. This checking-the-box mentality reduces a call to profound conversion into a one-time religious event. Many approach Ash Wednesday as if it were a spiritual vaccination. One dose and they're covered for the season. They attend Mass, receive the ashes, perhaps abstain from meat for the day, and then consider their Lenten obligations initiated and somehow partially fulfilled. But this approach fundamentally misunderstands the purpose of these rituals. The prophet Joel, whose words are often read on Ash Wednesday, provides the antidote to this misunderstanding. Rend your hearts, not your garments, and return to the Lord your God. Joel 2:13. The external symbols, the ashes, the fasting, are meant to facilitate an internal transformation, not substitute for it. Padre Pio understood this distinction profoundly. For him, religious rituals were never ends in themselves, but always means to deeper communion with God. When people would boast about their religious observances, he would often ask them a simple, penetrating question: "And how has this changed your heart?" One man shared how this perspective transformed his understanding of Ash Wednesday. "For years, I thought receiving ashes was about fulfilling an obligation," he explained. "But after reading about Padre Pio's approach to faith, I began to see that the ashes were really an invitation to a journey, the beginning of something, not the completion of anything." This insight reveals the true nature of Ash Wednesday rituals. They are seeds planted in the soil of our souls, not fruits already harvested. The ashes mark the first step of a 40-day pilgrimage toward Easter. They pose a question rather than provide an answer. How will you respond to this invitation to conversion? Padre Pio would often use this metaphor. The sacraments and sacramentals are like a door. You must not just admire the door or simply touch it. You must go through it to encounter what lies beyond. The ashes on Ash Wednesday are such a door, not a destination, but a threshold to cross. The practical implication is clear. Ash Wednesday should be approached not as an isolated religious event, but as the beginning of a sustained period of spiritual renewal. The question is not, "Did I get my ashes?" but "How will these ashes remind me daily of my commitment to conversion?" Speaking of deepening your spiritual journey this Lent, many of you have asked how to apply Padre Pio's timeless wisdom to your daily lives. That's why we've created the Spiritual Secrets of Padre Pio ebook, a resource specifically designed to guide you through this sacred season with the same authenticity that Padre Pio lived. This special guide contains powerful prayers directly from Padre Pio's spiritual treasury, reflections based on his most profound teachings, and practical advice for strengthening your spirituality in today's challenging world. Just as we've been discussing the importance of moving beyond empty rituals, this resource will help you develop a vibrant, living faith that transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary encounters with God. If you're ready to experience Lent as Padre Pio did, with complete sincerity and transformative power, click the link in the comments to access this special resource that will accompany you throughout your Lenten journey. And Brani, let's continue with another critical mistake Padre Pio warned about that might be hindering your spiritual growth. The fourth mistake Padre Pio cautions against is practicing penance and sacrifice without understanding their deeper purpose. Ash Wednesday begins a season of sacrifice, but for many, these sacrifices become hollow gestures, giving up chocolate or social media without connecting these acts to spiritual growth. Ash Wednesday and the Lenten season call for fasting and abstinence, but Padre Pio observed how easily these practices can become mere rule-following rather than pathways to spiritual transformation. He saw people proudly announcing their difficult Lenten sacrifices while their hearts remained unchanged and their relationship with God and others unimproved. What makes Padre Pio's guidance on this matter so powerful is that he embodied meaningful sacrifice in his own life. Despite bearing the painful stigmata for 50 years and suffering from numerous other physical ailments, he never complained about his sufferings. Instead, he offered them with love, uniting them to Christ's sacrifice on the cross. When a spiritual child once asked him how he endured such pain, Padre Pio replied, "I don't endure it, I offer it." This subtle distinction reveals the transformative approach to sacrifice that he advocated. He didn't merely tolerate suffering, he transformed it through love into something redemptive. This perspective completely reframes our understanding of Lenten sacrifices. The purpose isn't self-improvement or spiritual athleticism, proving how disciplined we can be. Rather, sacrifice becomes a language of love. Sacrifice isn't about what you give up, but who you're giving it to. One practical application of this wisdom is to connect your Lenten sacrifices directly to your relationship with God and others. Instead of arbitrarily giving up something difficult, consider what specific sacrifice might help you grow in love. Perhaps giving up criticism would heal a relationship, or sacrificing screen time would create space for prayer and presence to loved ones. When we fast with this perspective, even the physical hunger we experience takes on new meaning. That empty feeling in your stomach becomes a tangible reminder of your soul's hunger for God. The temporary discomfort of doing without something you enjoy opens spiritual space for greater satisfaction than physical pleasures could ever provide. Padre Pio would remind us that Christ's 40 days in the desert, which our Lenten observance commemorates, wasn't meaningless suffering, but purposeful preparation for ministry. Similarly, our Lenten sacrifices should prepare us for a more loving, Christ-centered life beyond the season. But there's one more mistake that Padre Pio observed, one that might surprise you yet affects many believers today. The fifth mistake Padre Pio warns against might seem contradictory to the second error we discussed earlier, hiding your faith out of shame. While some display their ashes out of pride, others hurriedly wipe them away, embarrassed to be identified as believers in secular settings. This behavior manifests in various ways on Ash Wednesday. Some people receive ashes, but immediately wash them off before returning to work or school. Others strategically schedule their mass attendance for evening when they won't have to wear their faith in public afterward. Some even avoid receiving ashes altogether out of fear of facing questions or judgment from colleagues, classmates, or friends. A young professional once shared a powerful story about this very struggle. For years, he had avoided receiving ashes because he felt embarrassed about having to explain them to his co-workers in a predominantly secular workplace. And I didn't want to be labeled as the religious guy or face awkward questions, he admitted. But after reading about Padre Pio's unwavering witness despite ridicule and opposition, something changed in him. Padre Pio had faced skepticism, medical examinations, and even church suspensions because of his stigmata and other spiritual phenomena. Yet, he never hid his faith or compromised his commitment to God. Inspired by this example, the young man decided to attend an early morning Ash Wednesday service. He received the ashes and, for the first time, wore them throughout his workday. But it was the first time I felt truly proud of my faith, he reflected afterward. The ashes weren't just a smudge on my forehead anymore. They were a declaration of who I am and to whom I belong. This testimony illuminates Christ's words in Matthew 10:32-33. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. The ashes on Ash Wednesday present a unique opportunity to acknowledge Christ visibly in our increasingly secular world. Padre Pio understood that faith testimonies need not be grand or eloquent. Sometimes the most powerful witness is simply being willing to be identified as a believer. The small cross of ashes on your forehead speaks volumes without you saying a word. It declares that you recognize your mortality, acknowledge your need for redemption, and identify with a faith that transcends the values of the surrounding culture. This Ash Wednesday, will you embrace the opportunity to be a quiet witness, or will fear of others' opinions dictate your choices? Now that we've identified the 5 mistakes Padre Pio warned against, let's explore his pathway to an authentic Lenten experience. Throughout his ministry, Padre Pio consistently emphasized 3 essential practices that transform Lent from a religious obligation into a life-changing spiritual journey. The first practice is sincere prayer. For Padre Pio, prayer wasn't a religious exercise but intimate communion with God. He often spent 15-18 hours daily in prayer, not because he was superhuman, but because he had discovered prayer's transformative power. And prayer is the oxygen of the soul, he would say. During Lent, he advised not necessarily praying more, but praying more attentively, bringing your full heart and mind to each moment with God. This doesn't require hours on your knees. It means bringing quality and intention to your prayer time. Even 5 minutes of fully present prayer can be more transformative than an hour of distracted recitation. Padre Pio suggested finding a specific time each day for undistracted prayer and focusing especially on Christ's passion during Lent, contemplating not just what he suffered, but why and for whom he suffered. The second practice is loving sacrifice. As we've already explored, Padre Pio emphasized that the value of sacrifice lies not in its difficulty, but in the love with which it's offered. And without love, he would say, sacrifice is empty. This Lent, approach your sacrifices as gifts of love rather than tests of willpower. When you experience discomfort from fasting or giving up certain pleasures, transform that moment into an expression of love. Lord, I offer this small sacrifice out of love for you who sacrificed everything for me. The third practice is genuine charity. Padre Pio wasn't just mystical. He was also extremely practical. He founded a hospital, supported orphanages, and constantly addressed the material needs of those around him. He understood that spiritual growth must manifest in how we treat others. During Lent, he encouraged not just giving away things, but giving of ourselves, our time, patience, forgiveness, and compassion. These 3 practices work together synergistically. Prayer connects us to God's love, sacrifice expresses our love for God, and charity extends that love to others. Together, they create a comprehensive approach to spiritual renewal. As we conclude our journey through Padre Pio's wisdom for Ash Wednesday, remember the 5 mistakes to avoid: empty ritual without conversion, displaying faith out of pride, believing rituals alone are sufficient, practicing meaningless penance, and hiding your faith out of shame. By guarding against these errors, you open yourself to authentic transformation. Ash Wednesday isn't merely a ritual. It's your invitation to profound renewal. The ashes you receive are seeds of transformation that, when planted in sincere hearts, can yield extraordinary spiritual fruit throughout Lent and beyond. This Lenten season can be different if you approach it with the authenticity that Padre Pio exemplified: sincere prayer, loving sacrifice, and genuine charity toward others. If this message touched your heart, write in the comments, "I renew my faith this Lent," and please share this message with someone who needs to experience this season with new meaning. May God bless you abundantly on this journey toward Easter renewal.